Yo. What's going on, my people? This your boy, Cuban Mike. Listen to the tape deck out in collaboration with the Ruckus. And today I have, every time I say we got family in the building, I mean we got family in the building, man. This young lady here, man, um, she just straight up keeps putting up the work. Every now and then I do what I can when it brings up, things that happen with Cuban issues, being a Cuban American. I'm a hip hop nerd. I'm a hip hop head. I support anything that's hip hop, especially in Massachusetts. But this thing with Cuba is near and dear to me. And for the last couple of years, I try to bring awareness to the station. And I've been rocking out with this girl for the last like 3 years. And it's funny, even for her to get even if that's the way I had to communicate with her, I feel as though it's like I had to do some kind of initiation or test to see if I was for real with it. So I got to give a shout out to Jordan for making that happen because, that's my brother from Boston. I hear my other Cuban brother from Boston. Every time we try to, network and get it to people, he put me on to this young lady. And, I had to go to certain tasks to see if I was real with mine. I said, I passed the test. And when I got to Florida, I was able to network. Even before that, I had to wait a year because I met her in 2022. I didn't get the chance to meet her to like the following year. So I had to meet other entities for me to get in contact with her. But ever since then, we've been rocking out. She has so much accomplishment in her belt, under her belt. Not just outside of Cuban issues. She brings up and she shows up with anything, with any cause involving women issues. We've been rocking out, just like last episode I had when I had Kia with me. Anytime it involves Cuba, we're always in the trenches, whether it's Florida, whether it's New York. She's another one I'm trying to get here. I'm trying to bring to Boston, as soon as possible. And she got a lot going on, man. So I wanna bring Ivette into the tape deck out. What's going on, sis?
Thank you. I'm super humbled, for the introduction.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And, you are family. And, it's crazy because we're all over the world and somehow we all find each other and we just connect. And this is a big, beautiful, freedom loving family. Mhm.
One of the things I say after I finally met you, and I think it was funny, it's just after 2 or 3 minute conversation that we had when we first met each other. You're like, I don't know what it is with us, but I feel like that we've known each other since like forever. And it's like that's that kind of vibe and energy I guess we could give out to each other when you have a cause we feel so passionate about. So we're like, I don't know what it is. I feel as though she's like, I don't even feel you're from Boston. I feel you're from Miami. That just came over here on vacation. You're
Everyone
pretty
here
from
thinks
Boston.
you're from here. Everyone thinks that you're in Florida. They get confused.
But yeah, you've been out here for like the last 3 years. I haven't seen him since then. It's like Batman. It's like Batman. But one of the things I want to get out of it before we get this thing going, we always talk behind the scenes, and one of those things when we get to our serious moments or whatever, you always tell me that you feel as though what you haven't done is not even good enough or was not enough, and that's when I have to like pump you on your brakes, and you better cut that nonsense because every accomplishment that you have, you at least have to pull in a little flex. So another reason why I have you on the show is to flex a little bit of all the things you'll be doing out here with all the costs going on in the world. So I want you to flex today. I want you to
Thank
do a
you,
little
thank
flexing.
you, thank you, thank you. I thank you. I am very humbled by all of your
Too
words
humble.
and everything, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, again, let's get it started, man. I want to know who is Yvette and how all this shenanigans done happen.
How, okay, well, as far as how did I get involved with everything Cuba related, I think definitely it happened after July 11th. And I think that that's the case for a lot of us.
Mm,
I think that once, well, let's rewind because I was following El Movimiento San Isidro before July 11 happened.
mm,
I was watching Luis Manuel Otero Alcantara on social media, and I was just seeing how they were putting cameras in front of his house, and I was just kind of following the movement of artists in Cuba and seeing what they were doing and how they were being oppressed. Um, and then once July 11 happened, there was just kind of something that sparked inside of me that I had to do something. I think that growing up Cuban, right, communism is bad, but I think to a certain extent, and this is just, my opinion, I think a lot of us, especially Cuban Americans, we grow up knowing everything that has happened, and knowing that we had to flee from Cuba, but there's almost like a hopelessness and some sort of acceptance that that's the way it's going to be, and the only option is to escape because that's the way it's going to be and nothing is ever going to change. But I think after July 11, seeing so many people fighting for freedom, it's like, okay, people are fighting, how can I help them? And everything kind of snowballed from there, and I never expected to be doing half of the things that I do now, but it's been a really exciting journey, and I hope that it makes an impact somewhere.
You know what's crazy? When I first started the Tape Deck Hour, my thing was just like hip hop. I just started off, because I'm a music head, I'm a music lover. So I'm like, okay, let me put in the music that I love, whether it's throwback or just the music I'm feeling at the moment. Once in a while, I'll throw in like a little Cuban thing or whatever. And then again, once July 11 happened, I just took my show elsewhere and decided to bring the issue that's going on within the cause. So it's like I had to take the good and the bad because now I became like the Cuban guy on the station that brings this going on or whatever. So everybody just forgets I was a hip hop guy. So it's like I
You could be
like the
both.
fact that
You
I
could
got
be
to
both.
I'm doing both, but now I just became that guy. So, and
Yeah.
I don't mind being that guy, but it's okay. Just remember, I was a music guy too. So I'm trying to give you guys a balance, but I don't know what it is. It's just like,
And you're an
just like
actor.
this.
And you're an actor. People need to remember that too. You
Oh,
also are an
that's another flex. Don't talk
actor.
about that
Okay.
later.
Okay.
It's also sorry. It's about you. I want to get my long list of accomplishments right here, but we did all this stuff just for the cause, and it's just interesting because just like you try to touch us, you're passionate about a topic, you touch on it, and then it just takes you somewhere else where you don't expect it. Because my thing, I thought it was going to be a Boston thing, so I never thought in 100 years I'll go to Florida and meet people such as yourself, meeting up Orlando, meeting a Funky, meeting everybody that I see on YouTube, having an actual conversation with them, and then the fact that I was able to interact with them and even do some network, and I could even give them a phone call if I need something out of them, and vice versa. So I think that's the wonderful thing that I was able to meet everybody else outside of Boston and outside of Jersey to bring this topic around. I you two questions. One, you ever been to Cuba?
I went to Cuba once when I was almost 15 years old, and it was an interesting experience. Like, very bittersweet. Very
Yeah,
bittersweet, but it's weird because I wasn't born there, but I feel so connected to
yeah.
there. And I felt very connected when I was there.
And I gotta ask, what was your if you want to discuss like what was your parents' story, like how they were able to like leave or escape, or I mean I was
So
always
both of my parents are from different parts of Cuba, right?
mhm,
My mom's side, they were from Camagüey. I think they also had a house in Havana. My mother's side was very wealthy, from what I've heard, right? That they had tobacco fields and they had like over 500 cattle. So they were very wealthy, and I guess right before Mariel was when they were starting to, and some of this I just learned recently because, as you may know, our families do not talk about any of the Cuban trauma. They
no,
just, it was bad, communism is bad, we're never going to go back, but they don't talk.
yeah,
So I did learn recently. My grandfather was not a political prisoner, but they would go and just do like arbitrary detentions, I
mhm,
guess, to try to scare you. And they left, and they left everything behind. And then they came on the Mario boat lift. And then my father's family, they are from Cardenas, which is also where Elian Gonzalez is from. And I have a little story from when I went to Cuba about that.
okay.
And
Oh, do tell.
and they were just a regular family. My grandfather was a musician. He actually played with Celia Cruz once in a backyard here before she blew up, which was interesting. But yeah, so that's their story. They both came on the Mario boat lift, and that's how they got out. And most of my family, my immediate family, is here. I still have a little bit back there.
Yeah.
And when I did go to Cuba, my dad took me to where Elian Gonzalez lived. He lived with his grandmother. His dad who came out on the news and everything, trying to support Elian and support the revolution, he was actually trying to escape also before that happened. None of these things come out on the news, but my family being from that town, we knew all of the details and all of the stuff with his dad. But anyways, my dad took me to go see Elian Gonzalez's house, and even when I was a child, then I was able to see that it was propaganda. The building was painted perfectly. Like, it was painted, it was immaculate. The street was fixed. And then, right where you could get out of the view of a camera, the sidewalks could be 3 feet tall, or just completely removed. The buildings were falling apart. There was like a place across the street, like a basement. Just everything was just uninhabitable almost.
Okay.
But even as a child, I was able to see the propaganda. And my dad had told me, you can't say this or say that. So it was a little bit odd. I would sit on the balcony in the apartment where we were staying, and I would just watch and I would just analyze things. And even back then, I remember there was a family member of my stepmom that needed to have a brace or something because he was missing like a leg,
Mhm.
and they wouldn't even sell it to him. They said that you would have to be American. It's just all of these crazy stories. Oh, there was also a moment that we went to Varadero, which was beautiful.
Mhm.
One of the most beautiful beaches in the world, if not the most beautiful beach in the world. And I was
But
just
compared to what we
walking.
have out there, it's probably the best that they have.
Yeah. And I remember I was just, walking around with a family member that was about my age, and we saw a hotel. And I was like, let's go in. I told her, let's go in. Right.
Mhm.
And she was like, they're not going to let me in. And I was like, why? Why wouldn't they let you walk in like the lobby or just walk in a hotel? Right. And she was like, because I'm Cuban. And I was like, how would they know? How would they know? And I was like, let's just go. So we were gonna go into the hotel, and we're just kids. I was probably 14, almost 15. She was 14 also, and they stopped us right at the door. And they
Wow.
literally said, you can go in, but she cannot. And I was just like, I'm a kid, and I'm learning all these things. And I was like, what? So, anyways, funny enough, we went through the back of the hotel. We climbed a tree. They had like a big muro there. And when
Yeah.
we get up the tree, there was a whole bunch of other kids. And we sat there quietly watching the hotel show with a whole bunch of kids. And it was a bittersweet experience. But yeah, that was that.
It's crazy that you're not the first or second person. You're probably like the first person that was able to tell us the tape deck. But I've met a lot of Cubans that go to Cuba, and it's just a trip that them being American going to Cuba, they get more privilege than the actual Cubans that live within that island. So they could go certain places, they could be in certain places, and there'll be no harassment whatsoever. Meanwhile, like
Sushi
our cousin and
lobster.
aunt, and mind you, they've been there since forever,
Mm-hmm.
since forever. So that's
Mm-hmm.
just bananas. Um, Here's $1,000 question. I know the answer. You know the answer, but my people don't know the answer on the tape deck. I gotta ask, where were you on July 11th, and what was the energy like when that happened? I would assume you were in Florida, but it was something that you were at work, and then something happened on the news, so you had the day off, and you were just cruising down your street or something, and a text
That
happened.
that exact day, I don't know, because I just feel like the whole month was so emotionally draining. There were so many videos coming out. It's all kind of like a blur. And I think even my son's birthday was, around that time, right? My son was born July 15th. And I
Mhm.
remember I even went, I took him on a vacation, and I was even feeling guilty. I was feeling guilty. I don't know. I was feeling guilty that I was on vacation and something was going on, but at the same time, I had no idea. I had never been involved in any of these things, you know? Um, but yeah, it was, I think for a lot of us, it was emotionally draining during that time. And some people have forgotten, those
Mhm.
feelings of what we felt.
Yeah. Surprisingly enough, I was actually in Florida when that happened.
Oh,
I,
wow.
I was actually in Florida. Out of all places, I was in Florida, and then like it was breaking news all over the local stations. I called my mother up in mass. I'm like, yo, are you watching what's going on? She's like, yeah, I'm going through like all the YouTube lives or whatever the case may be. So I'm watching. And it's just unbelievable because it's like, of course, it's Florida. So you expected to see and see this in every channel. But I'm like, yo, like this whole country should be seeing this like as a breaking news live or whatever the case may be, that this is happening towards this island, that nothing happens. So the fact
Well, I
that this
just
one,
forgot something. On that day, I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I heard that people were going to just, do something here in Homestead.
Mhm.
I went to where people were out, demonstrating, and it was hundreds of people. And even though Miami is, a community where there's a lot of Cuban people, in Homestead you don't see it that much.
Mhm.
And I was floored to see so many Cuban people out, and everybody marched and stopped the expressway in
Yeah,
Homestead also, which it's a big deal that I didn't even know we had that many Cubans in Homestead, and there so many people came out everywhere.
yeah. Yeah, that happened out here, but I was happy there was going some sort of awareness, but I was disappointed that it should have been have like more local footage about it because they didn't bring that much notoriety in Massachusetts. I think in New York and Jersey it spoke about it on those local news because we had people out there, but not too much in Boston. Boston even talked. I remember clearly because no one talked about it until we had a manifestation and we had to call the news to come to show some kind of support and relevancy or whatever was going on with this. So that was the part that was like, eh. But then again, it was not. I'm not surprised because we don't got too many of us. But again, that should have been something that the whole country should have been on it and show support. So I want to fast forward a couple of things because you've done a lot of things, and I want to start the beginning of JAR and how that came about and what that represents.
Um, well, I was doing something even before Jar, but the beginning of Jar, I had connected with Kiel and another girl named Gabby, and at the time we were just like getting together, and there was a whole idea of being the youth of the assembly of the Cuban resistance, since most of the exile community that had been still fighting for the freedom of Cuba and trying to bring awareness were people that were plantados or people that were much our older generation. So I think that after July 11, there is a need to kind of pass the baton, or as the saying, is in Spanish, is nosotros somos los pinos nuevos. We're the new pines, to kind of continue this movement and this resistance, from the exile.
Cool. And I guess with that being said, outside of the jar thing, I mean, there's a lot I want to get into. I mean, there's jar. So I want to get to jar in a second, but I also want to touch on Fuego de Fuego that I was able to participate during December. So
Ooh,
thank you for that.
well, thank you for
Yes,
coming. Thank you for
thank,
coming.
thank, thank you for the invite. I had to represent Fuego de Fuego and how that came about. And by the way,
Okay.
how that came about, can you please tell the importance how we could like, you know, just use art in a way to like express, our pain and our struggle and a representation of what the oppression does to the regime.
Okay, so Fuego Contra Fuego. I think there was always a need to be able to support the resistance artists, and seeing that they don't receive it. It's hard being an artist as is, right?
Mhm.
And then when you're a political artist, I think that it's even harder for you to get exposure, or for people to to buy your work, etc., etc. And now being a resistance artist inside of Cuba is extremely difficult because you for sure cannot exhibit your work publicly, and they can there's some works of art that they have locked up in prisons, just artwork that they have locked up in prisons. So I think that seeing the importance of art, seeing how other organizations like the People's Forum do call to artists so that they can use art and put in propaganda in their art, there was a need to be able to support artists who are expressing the truth and the reality of Cuba with their artwork. So The first thing that came with Fuego was there was an artist named Alexi Camilo Meriño Tellez, who is exiled in Mérida, Mexico. He does like caricatures that some people find a little bit grotesque, but I like that it's kind of in your face. Some people are into it, some people are not, but that's art, right? So my friend Michelle was friends with Alexei, and she was like, "Hey, can we help him? Is there anything that we can do to exhibit his artwork?" And I was like, "Well, let's try." That was kind of something that we've been wanting to do, right? And we have done stuff through JAR with artwork where we helped raise money for los plantados y las plantadas for the movie by being able to auction off artwork and things like that. Um, and then this opportunity came, and then just one thing kind of fell into the other, just like how you say that we're a family. Somehow, people who believe in the mission, will give it its all. And one thing fell into the other. I think I had a conversation with Funky. I was looking for space just to be able to exhibit, right? Because we have no funds. All of these things that we do and that I do are on a volunteer base or, out of my pocket. Once in a blue, there are people that see the work that I do and will help out in one way or another, but that's not something that I can count on. So Funky connected me with Galindo, and I went over, met him. At first, he thought I was someone trying to pull his leg to do something. He hung up on me.
Yeah.
But then we connected, and he's amazing. And then the community kind of came together. That first Fuego was crazy for being the first thing that we did. 4 Fridays back to back, and we had amazing turnouts, and we had different artists in our community come and perform. We had people come and do poetry. Plantados, ex-political prisoner. Speechy was an ex-political prisoner for 30 years. Angel Pardo también did, some poetry. It was just amazing. It was amazing. So that was the first, Fuego. After that, my friend Nando, who that is still in prison, that he was
I want to
kidnapped
touch upon that. I want to
December
touch upon
31st. We'll get into that. Nando was like, "Hey, if you can exhibit, let's start taking art out of Cuba." And I was like, "Do you think we could actually do that? You
Yeah.
think that we can actually do this?" I was like, "Listen, if we can make this happen, if we can get it out, I'll exhibit it. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just, gonna throw it in the universe and see what comes back, but I'll exhibit it. So it was a long process of getting the artwork out. And we did. We got some of it out, right? There were obviously challenges and stuff like that, and we got the first a couple like 2 rounds out of work. And then another thing, I wanted to do something around the Basel time to try to get people that are not from our community. Because my goal, obviously, I want people from our community to be able to connect, to kind of like touch base, touch home, and see that people are still fighting so that we can support them. But my main goal is really to reach people who have no idea about what's going on in Cuba. And there's things that are expressed through artwork that cannot be expressed through words. And there's conversations that are inspired just by looking at a piece of art that can be, life changing for someone, and that's just how I feel about it. So that happened. So the second Fuego was at Esquina de Abuela. That was also, an attempt for us to give visibility to Esquina de Abuela. Fabian, the owner of Esquina de Abuela, also is very passionate about the fight for the freedom of Cuba. Esquina de Abuela was named it's a homage to his grandmother, who was the original owner at the time, because that property was lost, and he's still battling to save it.
Yeah.
She was revolutionary at first, that became an revolutionary that was a political prisoner and fought for freedom. So it was important also to kind of like pay homage to her, pay homage to Esquina, to Fabian, and do an event there. And it was great. We had like over 200 people come out. um, our mission, was met.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, after that event, um, Nando was arrested on the 31st, and he's still there. They're trying to accuse him of setting fire to the grandma boat that was in the Lenin Park Museum.
Yeah.
And he obviously, they don't have any proof of that. So much time has come out, and I think that they've even told him that they've caught the individuals that were responsible for that. um Yet they still haven't released him. And they've actually at times put him in cells with HIV patients as well.
Wow. I want to
Mhm.
touch a little bit more on that. I got my own opinion on that. We'll talk about it behind the scenes. My conspiracy bug is kicking in or else. So we'll talk behind the scenes on that little issue there. But I want to touch a little bit more on who Nando is. Shout out to his wife. She's been really fighting hard as she should be to try to
Mhm.
get him out and bring awareness. Hopefully I could get her to the show and she could share her experience and her story, whatever she's going through right now. But
Mhm.
just I want to touch about Nando and who he is and what he's done to represent the struggle. That you get
Nando,
more education
you
on than
know,
I am.
yeah, Nando is a graffiti artist. He, does also performances,
Mhm.
resistance performances. He also has rapped in some songs. There's a song that he rapped with Michael Osorbo also. He's been in several other projects before participating with Fuego. He also participated in with another group that was this called the La Juventud. I have to look it up, but he's participated in several different art resistance projects. He was even involved in trying to we were even trying to get art to Europe. And things like that. He also, was also doing reporting on different issues like the garbage issue, the people who dedicate their lives now to sift through garbage, and he was documenting that.
Yeah.
He did a couple of reporting also for some of the Cuban media outlets. Um, and he also, had done a couple of humanitarian aid projects, being able to distribute, donations to people in his neighborhood and people who are needy, and visiting political prisoners and just supporting each other.
You know, one of the things I could say about living in America, and this is one of the things that's been really like, that things that irk me and kind of grinds my gear, is that when people see what's going on with this administration, which is neither here or there, you hear people are saying like, oh my God, I feel like I'm living in a dictatorship. This feels like a dictatorship. Like, you have no say. And there's like, as a person who has family that left what a dictatorship looks like, you have to like look back at the background, like, look, this is what being proud of being American looks like. Like you see, at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, at the tape deck, what we're doing, we actually have the luxury to talk about political things, and nothing is stopping me. I could do a show right now, and I don't have to worry about like the CIA knocking on my door saying I'm disrespecting either Trump or Biden or whoever's in office or whatever the case may be. This young brother, all he did was draw. He just did a drawing or probably made a song speaking about
They
diversity.
confiscated a flag when they went to kidnap him. They confiscated his flag and artwork, and they have that in the prison. Which it's like, how is that illegal? How is having your flag illegal? You know.
Yeah, so he did something minor that we out there killing, that we will kill for. You know what I'm saying? And he's in jail for it. Like just yesterday, there was a skit on Saturday Night Live. They made a joke about Trump. I'm like, let do that in Cuba and see what happens to you. Do a joke about Fidel Castro or Raul or Miguel. I'm just mocking on whatever they do and see what kind of thing will happen to you. That's why I have to giggle at
And you know
what
what? I
people.
think that because the term is used so loosely, and I also think that that's part of like propaganda, right? Where when certain political sides take a word and start using it out of context and people start associating that word, right? Because the severity of saying that you live in a dictatorship, you might not like this administration or that administration, but we certainly do not live in a dictatorship, you know? It's very easy to go down that path, but I think that because people use that word so loosely, they have become a little bit desensitized to countries that actually do live in dictatorships.
Yeah. So that's the part that really grinds my gear. And even with that, like, I always have people that, again, I'm doing the thing about Cuba. So it's like I feel as though they look at me like I'm the representative of Cuba and I speak for all Cubans. So maybe like, how can your people vote for that kind of man after you guys left the dictatorship? I'm like, look, listen, I mean, it is what it is in that department, and things that you do not understand that maybe in the future you'll probably get it. Just like you didn't get what happened, 4 years ago when I bought Cuba. Because even before July 11th, I used to bring up things about Cuba, and everybody thought I was a madman. They thought like you're exaggerating. There's no such thing that this happened. There's
Because the
no way
stories
that
are
Cuba
so
could.
crazy, people don't believe them.
They don't believe it. They don't believe it, or they might be exaggerating, or it's things like America's propaganda make Cuba look back. I'm like, no, it's not. It's really like this. So it wasn't until the one thing I can say about two things happened to me on my end: July 11th, and when my mother hit the podcast, because I got a podcast I did with my mother, and it wasn't me that did it. It was actually my voice that actually took the initiative to interview her, and she
Oh
told her
wow.
whole story. She told her whole story, and they were like, "Yo, I didn't know." Like my fault. It got to the point that my friends, because they know my mother, they didn't know what she is. It was, she's a little feisty young lady. So when she told her story, I'm like, this is what happened to me, this is what happened there, and this is what happened over here. And yo, I didn't know, like, because my homeboy, rest in peace, like he's super, God bless his heart, man. He was always so revolutionary, and I mean revolution not in the communist way. Like he was a man with a good heart, so he'll try to fight an issue and defend anybody that's going through, whether you're black, white, gay, straight, whatever the case may be. He's just was a good-hearted person, and it got to the point that he even like apologized. Mind you, he never met my mother, but he apologized to her because he tells a story that back in the day he used to wear a Shea shirt, and he told the story how he came. He was living. Where was he living? I think he was living in the Dominican Republic, or he was on vacation. But he came with a chaser, and that was when September 11th happened. So everybody was tense, especially coming out the airports. So he got stopped by like the security guards out there, and they told him about the shirt or what's he doing and why you wearing that. Are you part of a communist group? They really went at him like that. So then he kind of went back and kind of tried to do his research on who he was or whatever, and just listening to Cubans that went to the story or whatever. And then once he got my mom's story, he like apologized to her, like, yo, I didn't know, like I thought this was that. And then my mom, being that other statement that she was, she's like, baby, you don't have to apologize. But that's what Cuba sells you. The Cuban government, they sell you that propaganda. They're the good guys. They're for the people. You have to like romanticize what they do. So that's what they feature in
Yeah,
their
and
head.
we know that they hire YouTubers. They literally hire YouTubers. They'll
Yeah.
pay them, And everyone does this, right? Everyone does that. Every country kind of tries to depict certain things and for travel and stuff. But Cuba actually makes you lie. And they control what you can say and what you cannot say.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the difference.
Yeah, I mean, forget the YouTube. I mean, look at the fools we got to deal with. The People's Forum in New York. We know they're under their pocket. We know what they're doing with them over there. So it's nothing
Yeah.
new. And even, I mean, we could go as far as saying with the people in DC. They're lobbying for and wanting to lift the embargo. I mean, we know what they're doing. So
Mhm.
they're all over the place.
Yeah.
It's just our job to bring awareness and stop them.
But you see, that's why it's so important to continue just saying our stories, our individual stories to people.
Yeah.
Because when we don't say our stories and we don't share our truth, then that allows the propaganda and the lies just to be accepted as the reality that's not contested.
And not only that, somebody else will tell your story, and that's when the lie comes in. You got people that are
Mhm.
not even within the Cuban culture telling our stories and making it look like it's nothing that it is. Trust me, I live in Massachusetts. People that are telling our stories are not Cuban. They're coming from somewhere else with other agendas.
Mhm.
So that's how they're able to do that nasty work around us. But it's again, our job is to stop them. And things like you're doing and things that I'm doing, just bring awareness all the way around. I guess with that being said, with all these awareness, that we've been trying to bring on, with things on your end, has there been people, non-Cubans, that actually like gotten it, or even yet, were there people that were kind of like against you and they had some sort of little bit of compassion within our cause to see like what's going on, to be like, what can we do to help, or it just been like the same old, that what the hell, you're not about nothing.
You know, I don't think people come at me that much, and when I post things and whatever, I try to put all of the information, right? I try to be very direct. I try to cite my source and this and that. And I don't think I get attacked like that. I can say maybe, some events at FIU. There probably were a couple of times that we had some people that were very hardcore communists, and it blows my mind to even believe there are people out there like that, but there are plenty. And I think he started following the jar page, and he was like a little bit aggressive, and you could tell that he was kind of like challenged, because when you believe something for so long and you think that that's the absolute truth, to be confronted with new ideas, with new realities, with new information, and have to process that and have to accept that you were wrong, I think that for some people it takes some time. It takes some time. And I think with a couple of people that we confronted, that happened, and they might have their views of believing in socialism and stuff like that, but that was that. I remember there was an Italian artist that was hardcore communist, believed in communism super hard, even though he was here from Italy and making like $100,000 on a work of art, you know honey,
And he's
honey.
not sharing. He's not sharing that. He's not sharing 100,000. He's not sharing
Yeah,
that.
you're not making $100,000 on a piece of art in Cuba, okay? But after conversations, I think what he said that he doesn't believe that Cuba is communist, but he does believe that Cuba is a dictatorship. So that was another interesting, take there. But sometimes when you can have, sorry, that's my son, when you can have meaningful conversations with people that have different ideas or viewpoints respectfully, I think that really can open up people's minds to the truth.
That's interesting because I just I heard a podcast a couple of years ago, and they had a lady there. I gotta find her name, but there was a lady there that they had her like locked out in her own prison in Cuba. Like they did something to her house that she couldn't like leave. So like she was a prisoner to her own home, to into her own home, literally. And she talked about the oppression. She talked about how Cuba sucks, the system sucks, this and the third. And then even the lady who was interviewing her, she was talking about like communism, and that's the part that she kind of flipped and say Cuba's a dictator. She said the same thing the Italians did. She like Cuba's system is terrible, but they're not technically a communist country. They're a dictatorship. There's like a difference. And even the interviewer was kind of like shocked on that department because it was like, well, people will dispute that, say it is a communist country. And they're like, well, I mean, that's to each his own, but her own belief is like, yeah, it's a terrible system, but it's not communist, it's a dictatorship. And then she tried to break the difference. So that's something I found out. It took me to left field, so I'm trying to figure that out myself. Like, how can you figure that it's not a communist country, but it's a dictatorship? But throughout society, it shows when you have a communist country, at least with dictatorship, you know.
It ends with a dictatorship. It's like, when you fall into first the ideas of socialism, right?
Yeah,
Because socialism and democratic socialism is the new and an improved term for communist, right?
yeah, it's sick. It's a slick
Because
talk.
no one, people who are not communist do not want to be a communist, because it's a scary word, right?
Yeah,
For some people are
tainted.
proud.
It's tainted.
Some people are proud. But, when you go into socialism and then you fall into democratic socialism, and then you fall into communism, so hard to get back out, and you will fall into a dictatorship, because communism just leads into absolute power and totalitarian government, and that's where we are in Cuba.
And it's hard to get out of it. It's very, very hard to get out of it. I mean, we've been going at it for what, we're on year 66 now, almost
Hmm.
year 67. So that's the part that's very tricky. So So, and my other question was like, outside of the opposing end, has there been people like, being compassionate towards your struggle, our struggle, and say like, what can we do to help? What can,
A lot
bring
of
awareness?
people reach out to me, a lot of people reach out to me to try to help. And it is time consuming because we have jobs and families and personal problems, and all of these initiatives and things take time. There's so many people out there in their free time dedicating to different projects, all kinds of projects. But yeah, absolutely, with the SOS Cuba initiative, every once in a while, someone will just randomly. I got two big bottles of like pain medicine, that someone ordered from my wish list. I have no idea who it is. I don't even know who to thank, so I do get a little bit of help of people wanting to help, or connecting with people. Look, how did I connect with you? How can I help you? And you tell me how can, vice versa. And you meet people who are in the same struggle and want to connect in many different ways. The Fuego project would have not been able to happen if so many people did not come together and dedicate their time or dedicate a resource, whether it's location or talent or una mesa or whatever someone can do to kind of bring it together, you know. Absolutely. There's so many people that have reached out to try to help and vice versa. And it's just natural. I think it's just natural when you have it in you. It's just natural. We find each other.
And just to touch on it real quick, I spoke to Kia when she did my show. I said like, yo, the one thing about us is like, it wasn't a situation that we didn't go to no nonprofit. We didn't go like to no GoFundMe. We didn't go like we legit like spend our own money to go to these places. Like I legit spend my own money to go support your cause. I legit spend my own money to go to Washington. I legit spend my own money to go to New York. I legit
Hmm.
spend my own money like wherever I had to go to like support the cause. I legit spent my own money to like be supported to this cause because that's how passionate and with the struggle. So it's one of those things that you don't need a handout or need. I mean, you can get people to help you, which is okay.
Which is ironic when they're like hardcore communist people that accuse us all being paid by the CIA, and that, we do this because someone's paying us. And it's like, no, actually, we are spending our own money. And I don't know how much I've spent. I've also been very fortunate, to be able to make connections with people, to be able to do the things that I've done. So I didn't have to spend so much of my own money. Hmm.
That you say that the communists are the ones that usually ask for the handout. They're the ones that usually say because they don't want
Which
to. They
is
either
ironic.
they don't
Yeah,
even because they only want to spend their own money.
they
And most of the
don't.
time they have, and most of the time they do have the money, but they don't feel like spending it. They want you to, to support their cause or whatever. They can keep their pockets fat.
Absolutely. And it's just, like right now, there are nonprofits from our community, but
Mhm.
when you compare how much money and donations and grants and stuff that they've been receiving compared to what organizations like Code Pink and People's Forum and what they receive, is nothing. And
Yeah,
we're battling a monster that
yeah.
has endless funds,
Disposable funds, disposable
disposable
income
funds.
to get rid of
Hmm.
and speak the shenanigans.
Absolutely.
So, and I want to touch on your next line of work that you'll be doing with the organization of Lola.
with
And
with Lola. Yeah.
Lola, and I know you love the Cuban stuff because you're Cuban. I expect that coming out of you, but I think Lola might be one of your prideful ones because this is outside of your Cuban space, and you legit meeting people like that are non-Cubans, bringing awareness to their cause also. So that's a beautiful thing.
Well, I kind of fell into that also, right?
Time out. Before we continue on, you always fall into something. It's not
Always.
you always fall into some kind of thing that gives you like a bigger space into a bigger platform. It's like I mean I'm into video games. You're like Mario. You go from like the star to get in the mushroom to get in the flower. You just become a super duper human being.
Sometimes, when all these opportunities kind of keep coming up, while I'm trying to balance my life, right? Because I have to maintain that balance and that priority, and it's very hard. But I just kind of feel like it must be where God wants me to be, right?
Hmm.
If He's continuing to take me down this path, and I don't really know where this path is going to take me, but whenever there's something positive that's presented to me, I'm gonna jump on it. So Lola is a women's organization of women that believe in freedom and are just fighting for freedom in different ways in different countries. There's actually chapters in 55 countries. We're all over the world. There's 173 chapters in 55 countries. I mean, we're everywhere. We're in Latin America. We're in Africa. We are in Bangladesh. We are in Canada. We're everywhere, a little bit everywhere. Now, some of the women, they kind of, they're all libertarian, but they can lean to the more conservative side, all the way to, the other side, just different ideas that they have. But I've found that everybody's been very respectful, even if they have different viewpoints. And it's been a great, opportunity to be able to connect with women from around the world.
Um, has there been any stories from any particular person or individual groups that within the Lola camp that you've heard and be like, I could take this kind of struggle and use it as of my own to like empower the community? Like, if any kind of gems or advice you got out of them from
I
seeing
think
these individuals?
I think that, I think that at the end of the day, we're all connected more than what we think.
Mm,
I think that there's struggles happening in so many other parts of the world and so many things that we're all battling, individually. And sometimes, because we're all going through something, we might just be looking at our situation and not being able to see others, right? There were even ladies who were a part of this group who clearly believe in freedom and clearly are passionate about things. I had no idea what was going on in Cuba, right? Because the world is so big, right? So big, and there's so much happening, and there's wars all over the place, and there's so many things that so many people are trying to help, right? So it's kind of hard, right? And I have learned to, I guess, have my patience, right? Because July 11 happened, you're like, whoa, world, look what's going on,
mm,
But there's just so much happening all at the same time. There's
yeah,
chaos. So most definitely, I was able to connect with a lot of ladies from Vente Venezuela, who have been going through the struggle in Venezuela, who were exiled in different parts of the country. Um, Learning about things that are happening in other countries, like things that are happening in Bolivia, how their economy is doing really bad, how they're scared. There's people in Honduras, that the new president, her husband was on a narcotraficante also, and is obviously getting connected now to the dictatorships. And but at the end of the day, what it seems like is like all these leaders around the world that are part of dictatorships, they're all connected,
yeah,
right? They're all connected. And our struggles are all connected. And at the end of the day, we are fighting the same source because they're all connected. And
yeah.
that's kind of like what I've gathered from that experience.
All right, cool, cool, cool. Now you said something that I I wasn't even thinking about, but I gotta ask us because it's something that actually involves us, the community. You said that Lola, that no matter what political affiliation they're dealing with, they still are. They got a common place that they want to fight whatever oppression they're going through. Living in Florida and being that Florida is very heavily conservative, especially with us, the Cubans. Has it been, you know, has there been any like Cuban Democrats that just been rocking out with like the oppression? Because 4 years ago when I went to Washington, the beautiful thing about it, it didn't matter we were from black, white, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian. We all had a common cause and feel like, this system is horrendous and we have to like, bring awareness that message things to us. Has that momentum been the same in Florida at least?
I feel like there were some groups that were kind of supporting the things happening in Cuba that were from, that were predominantly leftist. And I think that as time kind of progressed, their initiatives were not so much focused on helping the Cuban people, but more focused on helping their party, right? The one thing about all of the initiatives that I'm a part of is regardless of what my political views are, I don't want to instill that on anyone. If I'm doing something artistic, I don't really care, what your political view is. This message, the fight for freedom, right? The fight against totalitarianism and all of that should be universal. That's kind of like how I feel about that. But going back to your question, I think that some of those groups, um, I feel like they were fake and that they were using the cause to try to help their political party. And this cause should be bipartisan, or not even
Yeah,
bipartisan, right? The fight for freedom should just be the same across the board and not be used for political purposes, even though it is very political. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And yeah, so that's that. Yeah, some
yeah.
of them they were even, getting doing immigration classes, right, for newly arrived Cubans, but then they were registering to them to vote for the Democratic Party. So, are you really trying to help people, or are you trying to get more votes?
Yeah, I figured that. Cause I had a conversation with Orlando, and we both were in agreement that it's not just the Republican thing because he feels that we need both sides to help out with this cause to get us out of the situation that we're in. And there was a time that this used to be a bipartisan thing, and now somewhere around it, it just shifted and went somewhere else. And I'm also a firm believer, and I might be disillusioned in that department, and maybe because I'm still living here in Massachusetts, there are actually more Democrats that want to be bipartisan, but I'm thinking it's between the money involved that's paying them to keep them quiet, or something that's higher than what that's keeping them to not you know say more than what needs to be said. Just off the fact I got this article on my phone, and it'll always just like I keep it there as a reminder. When this whole thing happened in 2021, there was like a vote to to do something to help out the cause. And you would think this thing would be a unanimous decision that, yeah, we need to do something to help the people. And for the most part, it was a majority thing. I like the 340 something people that voted. It was like 340 of them said no. And all 40 of them were all Democrats. But it was more Democrats that agreed with them as opposed to the other end or whatever the case may be. And I mean, I read the people that were not with it, and it was your usual suspects, the AOCs, the people from Boston, uh, the folks from Minnesota, usual the squad, pretty much them. So it
And
was it was it was the typical characters.
yeah, when it comes to U.S. policy, like on Cuba, I feel like, you know, Cuba is no longer Cuba anymore. I feel like the dictatorship is just abusing of the last people that are there, taking whatever that they can. And slowly and surely, they've been giving their land away to build military bases and to produce things for Russia and China.
Right.
And they have even ties with Iran, who is also getting in there and just taking up more land and more resources of the Cuban people, and they're spying on us. They're building bases 90 miles away from the United States. And because our policies are so lax on them and we're just continuing to allow this, it's a huge threat for the United States because they hate us. They love our money, they love the US dollars, they love the tourists, but they hate us. And they publicly say that they want to destroy us.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah. So um, you know, it's funny because again I get jokes or whatever when I got the administration or whatever. They're like, "Well, did you get everything that you wanted for out of this vote?" I don't know. First of all, it's been like 6 months, and number two, so far he's like 5 for 5. So, yes, yeah, yes. And my whole thing is Cuba right now at the moment. So if he gets everything done, especially with Marco in office, and I'm not even a Marco Rubio fan like that. I don't even like his policies or his policies like this. But in this topics, I could get with him in this department because I know for him this is personal, just the way it's personal to us. So I know he could be the man behind the driving force to be like, you know what, we need to shut these folks down. And
Yeah,
this could be like
and
a
another thing, just because someone voted for Trump doesn't mean that that person's a hardcore MAGA. We
please say
had
that again. Please say that again.
Yeah,
Please say that one more
just
time.
because someone voted for Trump doesn't mean that they're a hardcore MAGA. I mean,
Thank you.
their choice was Trump or Kamala Harris. I mean, that's like kind of like a no-brainer, right? I think a lot of people would have wanted more options, right? But those were the options that we were given. And and I think that the country is doing a lot better. I don't agree with and just because you voted for someone doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that they do across the board.
Yeah,
You could vote for someone, still be proud that you voted for that person, and not agree on everything that they do. Just because you vote for someone doesn't mean that you have to look at that person as a god or agree with everything that they do from here to the end of time.
yeah, and just like Biden, Obama, or even Trump, every person has a right to be criticized or whatever. That's the beauty of living. We're not in Cuba. We have a right to criticize him. If I vote for him and I say, yo, I don't like the way he does this, I could say that also.
And then they go
And
say, "Oh, you voted for him."
yeah,
Well,
thank you.
I
Either you
still
voted
voted
for
for him. I don't
two
want
things.
Kamala, you
Yeah,
know.
two things. So
Kamala
you
in.
know, and here's the weird thing about that. You get two things. You got the one saying, well, this is what you voted for. So you have to agree with everything. You have to take everything that comes with it since you voted for them. Like, I really don't have to. And then you have the other side say you have to have this like undeniable loyalty, like he's like a father figure. Say, well, you can't judge him like that because you have to have loyalty. You need to have loyalty. You need to
Like
stand by
people
him no
need to
matter
get out
what.
of this gang mentality. You know, we're like the
Thank
Crips
you.
and the Bloods, red and
Thank
blue. Like, no, man, they're
no.
human beings. You might agree with some things that they do, and you might not, and you pick the better option. That's all
Yeah.
it is. You
The end.
know,
The end.
the end.
Jesus. Oh man, I look, man. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna need like 5 more minutes from you before we get out of here, man. Because there's a lot of shenanigans going on, and I think I'm gonna need your help with this shit. So, I don't cuss. Sorry, Brett. So yeah, man. So with that being said, what else you got coming up next?
Well, I wasn't really sure what I was gonna do. I still have this artwork. I want to exhibit it. I have a very special piece that I have to gift to Rosa Maria Paya. It was
Yeah.
the painting is something that was done in a homage to Oswaldo Paya.
Mhm.
It's been a little bit controversial, that painting. So
Still?
it's still very controversial because Oswaldo Paya is depicted as Jesus Christ,
Yeah, yeah.
y el corazón sagrado. So, but anyways, next weekend I'm popping up at an art club, small art club, not Cuba related. It's just an art club in Wynwood. I get a 6x6 space. I'm gonna take what I can and just pop up there, and then I have something cooking, right, to do a nice event. I was actually, proposed a space recently, and I have to plan that out, pick a good date. I'm also waiting to see if possibly I can exhibit some stuff during the play of The Walls Have Ears. I'm waiting to hear back. I wanted to exhibit at least two of the pieces, but my next thing is that art pop up next weekend, and then I'm planning something nice. I have to do a nice event, and I want to be able to, turn in this piece. That was my agreement was, and I want to exhibit it. I want the world to see it. That was the whole point. Exhibition is so important. So my agreement was, I would get it out, and then I will give it to Rosa. So I want to plan a very nice event to be able to give to her, and I know she's planning on coming out with her family, so it's going to be something special. So I'll give you the deets on that once I have them.
Hey, who knows? Maybe I'll make an appearance. Who knows? Let's see. Let's see what's gonna happen.
Hey,
Sure. Just an excuse for me to go to Florida. So let's see if we can make this happen.
all right, that sounds
Yeah, man.
good.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Do not leave me yet because I still got some things to talk about behind the scenes. So let me just wrap this thing up right here
All
because
right.
we don't talk enough talking that we had to do it for here, man. Yvette, thank you. 100, thank you. I know you got an insane schedule. Thank you for taking up your time and chopping up some good game and was able to tell all the dopeness that you be doing with Cuba and outside of Cuba and just like everything. So, whatever you need, you got an open door up with the tape deck. I'm definitely going down there. Let's see if sometime before the year ends, we can get you out here to Boston, do some things, and we're gonna keep working.
Awesome, and thank you for everything you do.
Dang, yeah. And that's it. That's your boy, Keep It Mike. It's in the 102.9 Tape Deck in collaboration with the Ruckus. You can catch me here every Friday from 6 to 7. I'll catch y'all next time. Same Tape Deck time, same Tape Deck channel, free, cool, what? Peace.